And welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important matters that would have taken place in our country over the last week or so. And as I would normally say, we live in a very dynamic society, and in any given 1 week period, there are so many issues which require our discussion. I want to take this opportunity also to welcome our Facebook viewers who are joining us from right across Guyana, North America, and elsewhere. Our viewership has been increasing with each passing week. I want to begin by talking a little about the PNC General Council meeting, which took place last weekend at Sophia, Georgetown. And from all indications, both public and private, the discussion seems to be an obsession with the People's Progressive Party and its leaders. Almost every speaker who spoke at that summit, at that General Council meeting, spoke at length about the work of the PPP and the leadership of the PPP. And it is important to note that, because it means that whatever work that the PPP is doing in opposition has been effective, has been potent, and has had the impact of shaking the government, keeping the government toes to the fire, so to speak, and has brought tremendous public pressure on the government. And at the same time, the PPP has continued to rally more and more persons who traditionally would not have supported the PPP. We have been able to gather those people more and more, assemble them around the PPP with each passing day. What is worrying, however, is that what we heard being discussed at the closed door session of the council, our information is that there were meetings and discussions in relation to targeting or continuing to target certain leaders of the People's Progressive Party because of the tremendous work that we are doing out there and all over. And the PNC has never been known to be a democratic outfit. The PNC has a track record of the way that it deals with its political opponents. It does not deal with them conventionally. It deals with them in various methods. So it is our information and it's our responsibility to pass it on to our supporters that at the last General Council meeting, at indoor sessions held, discussions have taken place in relation to how they will deal with certain leaders of the People's Progressive Party who are causing them tremendous problems. And you out there looking at this program, you don't have to you're not uncertain, I'm sure, as to who those PPP leaders are. So we all have to be careful in what we do and the way we carry ourselves and the way that we continue to do political work, because the PNC, when it is ready to unleash, it does not do so with any kind of the utilization of any conventional methods, let me put it that way. You would see also that the Guyana Times today has issued a front page comment in which it decried the number of threats that it has received in recent times because of the critical stories that it has been publishing about the government. The Guyana Times said that it has received several phone calls, several threatening messages over the past few days. Now, that is exactly the information which we got emanating out of the General Council, that PPP leaders and PPP, or rather persons or organizations that are friendly or that are considered to be friendly to the People's Progressive Party will be targeted. And Guyana Times has come out already with a front page commentary that it has been the recipient of threats and intimidatory messages because of its publications regarding the government of Guyana. Now, I wish to take this opportunity in this program to condemn in the strongest possible terms any attempt by anyone, including the government, to prevent or intimidate the Guyana Times from doing its job. The Guyana Times is a normal newspaper. They publish objectively. They may have a particular bias, but they are entitled to that. They do not publish lies. They do not publish stories. They do not fabricate stories. They do not publish sensational stories. They do not publish stories and then when the other side asks to ventilate their side of the story, they deny them that opportunity. Guyana Times is not a newspaper that can be categorized like that. Guyana Times publishes, as far as I know and as far as I'm concerned, it publishes its stories with objectivity and in accordance with the highest journalistic standards and ethics. And this brings us straight back to the sedition bill. That is why the government wants that sedition, that cybercrime bill. That is why the government wants that section 18 or clause 18 in that bill to remain. They keep on believing us because we didn't attend the meetings. Yes, we didn't attend the meetings, but that doesn't make us responsible for the presence of the section or the clause. We didn't put it there, the government put it there. And were we in that committee, had we attended the meetings, from all indications, our efforts to have them change that would have been futile, because they have said outside of the committee that they are not prepared to change it. So whether we were there or whether we were not there, it would not have made any difference whatsoever. So those persons who continue to blame us, the PPP members who didn't attend the meetings, I reject any blameworthiness, I reject any responsibility for that clause being in the bill. We didn't put it there, we never supported it. Yes, we were absent at a particular time, but were we present, our input would not have materially changed anything having regard to the ex post facto statements which the government has made in relation to that bill. Comrade Ramjatan is on record as saying the clause should remain. Basil Williams is on record as saying that the clause should remain. The government as a collective is of the position that the clause should remain, because that is the type of governance that they engage in, that they advocate and that they support. The suppression of freedom of speech, and that is the essence of that clause. And where is Moses Nagamutu? Moses Nagamutu loves to masquerade as a champion journalist and as a person who champions the rights of journalism, of free speech, and of freedom of the press? Where is Moses Nagamutu in relation to the sedition clause in the cybercrime bill? I am calling on journalists, I am calling on the ordinary Guyanese people to call on Moses Nagamutu. We must not allow him to seek refuge in silence. We must drag him out for his spinelessness. Because Moses Nagamutu would have, if the PPP was ever trying to do something like this, Moses Nagamutu would have been leading the charge in condemning the PPP for doing something like this. Today he has become dumb. He has lost his voice. He is not even saying that he supports it. Let him come out and say that he supports it, or let him come out and say that he does not support it. Silence is not an option for Mr. Moses Nagamutu, the Prime Minister of this country, and a long-standing journalist. Silence is not an option to him. We have to get him out to make a statement on this matter, one way or another. So I'm hoping that journalists who are listening to me would find some way and some opportunity of extracting from Mr. Nagamutu a response in relation to the cybercrime bill, in particular clause 18, which deals with sedition in cyberspace. Another important development which has taken place over the past few days is the grant of a stay of proceedings by Justice Holder against Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan in relation to the charges filed against Brassington and Ashley Singh. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the judge for an excellent decision. I asked him at the time when he delivered the decision that I hope that whatever he read, because he had read from a handwritten manuscript, I asked him to have it typed so that it can be circulated for the benefit of the public and of course the benefit of the legal profession. The learned judge did an extraordinarily informative and well-researched dissertation on the relevant principles of law, and in the end granted a stay of proceedings on the ground that were he not to do so, then he would not be protecting the administration of justice and the integrity of the legal process as he is obliged to do. The rationale being, as I explained in the press, that you cannot have charges whose validity are being challenged in the High Court being tried at the same time in the Magistrates' Court. To allow such a situation to take place would make a mockery of the legal process and would render the challenge against those charges in a superior court futile and redundant, because while the charges are being heard and determined, while the validity of the charges are being challenged in the High Court, there is an inferior court, the Magistrate Court, going ahead with the trial of those charges. Simply common sense would tell you that it should not happen. And the submissions which I made along with our team of lawyers to the learned judge were upheld, and we were fortunate that the judge ruled that the proceedings in the Magistrates' Court should be stayed until the hearing and determination of the challenge filed against those charges in the High Court. Of course, our instructions are that if that challenge in the High Court is not determined in our favor, that we must appeal to the Court of Appeal of Guyana and then all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice. I feel that we have a strong case. I don't wish to discuss the merits of the case on the program, but I do believe that we have a strong case and the charges which have been filed are puerile, they are vexatious, they are frivolous, and they constitute an abuse of the process. And I want to also take this opportunity to mention that Mr. Sesnarayan Kaulisar, as you know, was arrested yesterday and released on, I believe, $200,000 bail after being questioned about certain transactions that took place under his tenure as Minister of Finance for the years 1999 to 2006. Imagine these people are going after transactions that took place in 1999, over 20 years ago. I wrote on my Facebook page, many of you may have read it, that our legal system prevents investigation, criminal investigations going back over protracted periods. It does so because if charges are to be instituted by the state against an individual after the expiration of a number of years, that person is unlikely to have a fair trial. Why? Because witnesses that would have been available to him may no longer be available to him. Witnesses that would aid in his defense, documents which may be able to assist him in his defense may not be available. Memory lapse. Persons, witnesses, even if they are available, may not be able to recall accurately what transpired, and that will affect his ability to provide a defense. And in those circumstances, our legal system, like the British legal system, says that it is unfair to try a man in those circumstances, and a prosecution will be stayed on the ground that it is an abuse of process to prosecute a charge in those circumstances. And one would expect that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution would know these principles. I know that the Attorney General doesn't know them, but at least the Director of Public Prosecutions, whose responsibility it is to ensure that the public is protected from vindictive prosecution, from unsafe prosecution, from oppressive prosecution, and from prejudicial investigations. And that is why the Constitution gives the DPP that power to step in at any time and terminate any prosecution instituted by anyone. The DPP is supposed to be that protective filter to ensure that whatever passes through the criminal justice system and goes to the magistrate's court for trial are matters that are charges that are not oppressive, that will not amount to abuse of process, and that will not result in an unfair trial of an accused person. That is one of the main functions of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And in this instance, we see that office not being vigilant and not discharging the responsibility which devolves upon that office. And it is quite unfortunate. And it is because of that, it is because of the weakness of that office that we see our citizenry being exposed to a criminal justice system that is being used like a weapon against them. Fortunately, the judiciary is standing up, and there is no reason why the DPP cannot stand up as well. The DPP has the same legal protection like the judges. They are independent office holders. Their salaries are guaranteed from the consolidated fund. They are insulated lawfully from any form of influence or directions from any quarter. They enjoy security of tenure. The law gives them that kind of protection so that the holders of those offices must stand firm against any attempt by the executive to interfere with their functions or from in any manner using the legal process in a manner that is unlawful. And here it is, you have flagrant abuse of the legal process, and the DPP's office allows it to take place. In fact, the DPP office is possibly advising. We have the instructions that that office is advising these charges to take place. It's quite a travesty. This very week, I am going to challenge the DPP's office for the decision that office made to terminate the private criminal charges. I have not gotten around to do it yet because of the workload, but no decision that is unlawful made by a public officer or by a court of law should be allowed to remain on the record. It must be challenged. And that decision sets a horrible precedent in this country. The DPP in that decision arrogates onto that office the power to look after good governance and all sorts of nonsense. That has to be challenged and must be quashed by a court of competent jurisdiction, and that will happen in the following week. At least the proceedings will be filed in the following week. The other important issue that I want to dwell on and inform you about is the debt, the national debt. Now, the last sitting which we had in the Parliament about a week ago, very late in the sitting, in fact the last item on the agenda, hidden at the very bottom of the parliamentary agenda, was a motion. This motion was hidden away from public glare because of its devastating nature. By this motion, the government raised the debt ceiling to over 50 billion in respect of any project that it wishes to embark upon. So before there was a cap, the government couldn't borrow above that without coming to the Parliament. What the government has done now is to remove parliamentary scrutiny. We wouldn't know, so you wouldn't know when they go and they take loans of huge quantity. Now that is exactly what they did when we ended up in bankruptcy. Nothing is wrong with taking loans. Loans are necessary for the development of our country. Loans are necessary for the development of your businesses or for the advancement of your personal life. So loans by itself is not a bad thing. What is bad about loans is when you take a loan, you spend the proceeds of the loan, and then you have nothing to show for it, and you are unable to repay it. Therein lies the problem. And that is what happened under the PNC in the 70s and in the 80s. They took billions and billions of dollars of loans, and they left a broken country. Every road was broken. Every school had to have been repaired. You had shortages in every area. The economy was bankrupt. You had no infrastructure. 80% of the country was not getting potable water supply. Another 60% of the country was not getting electricity on a regular basis. The 87% of the country was living under poverty, and the country was the most indebted nation in the Western Hemisphere. And we had nothing to show for the loan. Nothing. Nothing to show for the loan. And we are going back into that, into exactly that position. Now, when we left in 2015, the national debt that we left in 2015 has already been doubled. They have increased it by 100% in 3 years. In just 3 years, they have increased the national debt that we left in 2015. They have increased it by 100%. So they have doubled the national debt. And they did so with only 3 transactions. Let us just take 3 transactions. The 30 billion that they are borrowing for Gaisuku, the 850 million that they are taking from the Islamic Bank, and that's why they went to the Parliament to raise the limit to take that loan, 950 million US dollars from the Islamic Bank, and the money that they had already taken. Those 3 things alone doubled the national debt in 3 years. So in 3 years, the debt that we left after 23 years in government, they managed to double it in 3 years. Let me repeat that so that you can assimilate what I'm saying. After 23 years in government, the debt that we left in 2015, this government doubled it in 3 years only. And what do they have to show for it? We left a built country. We left the Berbice Bridge, we left the stadium, we left highways, we left a new airport that they are now completing, the East Coast Roadway. We built back the health system in this country, we built back the education system, we built back the infrastructure system, we created a vibrant economy, we put the Marriott there, we built back this country. And we left a debt. They have doubled that debt in 3 years. And in that 23 years period, we repaid hundreds of billions of dollars in debt that we inherited from them. We moved our country from one of the most heavily indebted country in the world to a low to medium income country. So from a bankrupt country, from a heavily indebted country, to a low to medium earning country. That's where we move our country economically. And we left a country with a treasury that as soon as they went in, they were able to raise their salaries and live a life of squandermania. That is the amount of money that we left in the treasury. What we inherited in 1992 was bankruptcy, not a cent in the treasury. We didn't even have money to buy gas to get GPL to generate electricity. The ministers, when we took over government, didn't have money to buy a vehicle. Ministers were traveling in taxis when we took over government in 1992. We left them with such a full treasury that they have been passing budgets after budgets that they claim are the highest ever. How do you think that is possible? Because we left the money there. They were able to double their salary. How do you think that is so? Because we left the money there. And we left a built-up country. In 3 years, they have doubled the national debt and they have nothing new to show. Nothing new that they can point to show. All the projects that you see going on around you are all PPP projects. All of them. They have nothing to show for doubling the debt. In fact, what they have done is destroyed all the productive sectors. That's what they have to show. A destruction of all the productive sectors, closure of Gaisuku, a decline in imports and exports, a decline of productivity in every area, a decline in the economy as a whole as a result. That is what they have to show, and they have doubled the national debt. And these are statistics that are incapable of contradiction. Incapable of contradiction. So they are taking 30 billion from Gaisuku. They are taking 30 billion for Gaisuku. Up to now, we don't know what this 30 billion will be used for. They have not said to us that they are taking $30 billion loan, and of course they are collateralizing all the assets at Gaisuku. So all the assets at Gaisuku will now be pledged to the commercial banks. That is another story by itself. But in taking $30 billion loan, they have not told us that one single sugar worker will get back his job. So why are you taking $30 billion? To do what? They can't tell us what they're going to do. They said they're going to improve the infrastructure of the estates. What does that mean? What, you're going to take $30 billion to build dams? The lack of information, I believe that they don't know what they want to do with the 30 billion. And that they will blow it out and we will be back to square one. Do you know that they are taking an average of, I believe, about 20 billion, they are paying about $20 billion a year to Gaisuku simply to do the drainage in the backlands now, in the areas where they have closed all the estates. The exact thing that we told them. $20 billion, do you know how far that would have gone in keeping the estates grinding? That is the figure that they are now using to pay Gaisuku to clean the estates. They clean the drainage and irrigation in the back. And we said exactly that to them, that if you close these estates, the cost of closing them is far greater than the cost of keeping them alive. Just drainage alone is 20 billion. Imagine what is happening with the 7,000 workers and their family, the destruction in life, the destruction in welfare, the destruction in lifestyle, the social and other ramifications that are flowing from an employment of 7,000 people and their families. You can imagine the destruction and the decay that is taking in that area. That, if you're to put a value on that, that's another couple billion, tens of billions. But that is how these people think. They don't think that way. They think only about cash. That's all. Their vision is so myopic. I don't understand. All they're looking at is people's wealth, and they are finding ways and means of interfering with people's ability to generate wealth in this country. That's all. Every day you open the papers, they have a problem with the concessions. If those investors did not get those concessions, they would have never come to Guyana. That's the first thing. These people don't understand that. If they didn't get that regime of concessions, they may not have come to Guyana. You would not have an opportunity of calculating how much concessions they enjoy. You don't check the concessions that they enjoy, you look at the benefits that those concessions have yielded. What are you going to do if no one comes? What are you going to do with the concessions? What are you going to do? This is not money coming in. Concessions are not money coming in. All you are doing is waiving taxes. That's all you're doing. And you are waiving taxes in return for hundreds of your employees, of your people getting jobs. You are waiving those concessions or those taxes so that you can collect more taxes at the end of the day. And your economy in every respect benefit from it. These people can never lead a successful government. They are too myopic in their vision. They are calculating how much concessions the country lost, as if those people didn't come, the issue of concession would not have arisen if those investors didn't come. So you don't envy the people concession that you gave them. Those people enjoy that concession and you are benefiting from it. You didn't give them cash. All you did is that you refrained from charging taxes in uncertain areas of activities. And then you're talking about capping concession on one sector, and you give all the oil to ExxonMobil. You give all the oil at next to nothing price, and all the concessions available on planet Earth, ExxonMobil has it. And you're not saying a word about that. You're not saying a word about that. There is no other investment in this country that has attracted more concessions than the oil contract with ExxonMobil. None. So I don't understand this government. But let's get back to the debt. When we wanted to raise the debt ceiling for Amila Falls, they didn't do it. They rejected it in Parliament. Now, please understand that Amila Falls would not have caused a single cent of debt to the country. All we were asking, the investor was asking, is that if GPL did not buy the power generated by Amila Falls hydro project, if GPL didn't buy the power under the power purchase agreement which was signed between the hydropower plant and GPL, then the government was to guarantee payment for the power generated. So it was a guarantor agreement. It is as if you go to the bank and you say that you're standing guarantor for your son who borrowed a loan. You not taking the loan, so the government of Guyana was not taking any loan. It was only in the event that GPL refuses to buy the power from the hydropower. And how GPL would have refused when GPL is owned by the government and GPL has no other source because that's what it's signed to. And because of that, so it was not a debt. They keep running around and saying that Amila Falls was going to create a debt that would bankrupt the country. Nonsense. It was not a debt. It was contingent liabilities only. Only contingent liabilities. And they refused. But now they come and they pass a motion to raise the ceiling. And we were confining it only to Amila hydro project. They have raised it to cover everything in the country. So tomorrow, if they want to build an airport in the sky, they can take a loan to do it. And you and I wouldn't have an opportunity in the Parliament to say anything about it because they have already passed a motion which is required by the law to raise it to that level. It is already raised, so they can go and borrow at their own whim and fancy. As I said, borrowing is not the problem. It's what are they doing with the money? What are they doing with the money? As I said again, after 23 years in government, we have a country to show. We left $2 debt. In 3 years, they doubled it $2 to $4, just in 3 years. And they have nothing to show but a declining economy. Joblessness, a lack of hope. They even stopped talking about the oil. They used to say, every time anyone raises an issue with them, they used to speak about the oil, that we will get oil. They stopped talking about that. Like they themselves now realize that the oil wouldn't matter really because of the contract that they have signed. A contract that will last for 40 years. So I'll go to the telephone now and we can begin to take your calls. The numbers are on the screen so that, and please when you call in, ensure that you are brief and you have a question or a statement to make and you are not offensive. Any offensive caller, I will disconnect. Caller, you are the first caller for this evening's program.
Yes, Mr. Mandala, good night.
Good night.
I enjoy your program.
Thank you.
But I'm calling for Clifton settlement.
Yes.
But what bothers me so much, this so-so, taking the PDP finance minister to court, all the finance ministers to court under the PDP. What happens with Cybercrime, who was the PDP? Why didn't they investigate him?
All right, let me talk about that a little.
Yes.
Thank you, caller. Now, I began, but I didn't get to complete the point I wanted to make earlier. One of the reasons why they're calling in these finance ministers is that they want to get at Bharat Jagdev. Now, recall, as president, he has certain immunities under the Constitution which protects him while he was president from being charged. None of his decisions in office made as president can be the subject of any criminal or civil proceedings. So they can't charge him. Recognizing that, they are now going back to transactions that he did when he was Minister of Finance. So they are going back 25 years now, or thereabouts. Now, Jerry Jagan was the president when Jagdev was finance minister. Janet Jagan was the president. Are they now saying that Janet Jagan and Jerry Jagan were also corrupt? I know that they are saying that Jagdev was corrupt when he was president. So Janet and Cherry are also now being labeled as corrupt because they were the president at the time. And these transactions took place obviously with their knowledge. All of them were approved by the cabinet. So it means that Jagan approved it, Cherry Jagan approved it, Janet Jagan approved it. So Janet and Cherry approved corruption. That's what they're saying now. And the caller is right. Why are they not going back to Carl Greenidge? Where Carl Greenidge, as Minister of Finance, sold to himself, because he was Minister of Finance and he was also the chairman of NISIL. And as Minister of Finance, NISIL sold to Carl Greenidge a house in Bel Air Park, Bel Air Gardens. There was no valuation done. There was no public tender. And it was not sold at market value. So Greenidge sold himself a house. Why is he not being charged? So caller, I totally agree with you. But that shows the political nature of the investigations. Yes, caller, you're on the air. You are what, a band? What job do you do?
We are a van driver. And the NIS company and
The NIS charges of a rate,
right.
which is a percentage of your income.
Right, and we explain to them and tell them that the income we work is not high.
Well, if the income that you earn is not high, then your NIS should not be high.
Well, that is the problem we get in. They say they have a fixed rate is 9,500 and they can't do nothing for that.
9,500 fixed rate?
Yeah, for self-apply.
No, man, it is a percentage of what you earn. That is my understanding. But could you let me see. Can you go to a lawyer in your area, Mr. Anamaya? Let him check it for you.
Yes, sir. We will make contact with Mr. Anamaya.
Make contact with Mr. Anamaya. Let him check out what's the rate, because as far as I recollect, it's a percentage of what you earn.
But they tell us that they have a fixed rate and that's or else they will take us to court.
All right. Well, speak to Mr. Anamaya. I'll speak to him off the program as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Persons have been complaining to me about the police seizing persons' cycles, bicycles, that are not equipped with lights and so on. Normally the police would publish some notification in the newspapers. Please, I mean, if it is against the law to ride without lights, then it is against the law. But I know that because of, I don't know what was the reason, but normally notification is published by the police that they're going to have these campaigns, etc. Please, police officers, ensure that notification is given. Because these people are very, very poor people. You take away their bicycle, they can't pay the fine. And that bicycle is the only way for them to move around. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I like the program you've got to do. I like it.
Thank you.
But once you have it done, you're not carrying people in. What's the so I want to get to hear what Mr. Ramaya story from that story too. You ain't like coming there to what is to know.
What happened to Ramaya Ramjatan?
And Ramjatan.
Ma, you want me to use up your valuable time to talk about Ramaya and Ramjatan? No, we don't have time to waste with them people. Those.
Right, all right. But thank you very much.
Yes. Ramjatan, something is wrong with him. And I don't know where Ramaya is. I don't have time to deal with those issues. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night. I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, the police are not using the bicycle right now. Constantly they walk for people and the bicycle people keep money. And the police are not trouble not the people on the road. They're the bicycle.
No, I know that a lot of people call me. So I'm asking the commander, the commander of this division, to please look into this matter where people's bicycles are being seized by the police.
Then they have last time, what people really go to this country?
All right, caller, I sympathize. I understand. A lot of people call me and complain. And that's why I'm raising it on the program. So I'm calling on the commander to please intervene in the number of cycles that are being seized and put some laxity on the program, relax the program, the campaign that you have a little, to allow for persons to get their cycles accessorized with lights and whatever it is that are missing from it. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
What is the position of the 18 million that they get as bonus from the oil company?
Okay, thank you. Let me brief you on that. As you know, the 18 million US that they got as a signing bonus, I tell you some things I read in the newspapers. I see that Raphael Trotman is now saying that they were forced to disclose this 18 million. Apparently they were planning to take Venezuela to court, and that was a secret decision. They didn't want nobody to know that they are taking Venezuela to court. So, have you ever heard anything that stupid in your life? If you take your neighbor to court, he wouldn't know when you serve him the documents. So they were secretly taking Venezuela to court, and they said that this 18 million they would have used to pay lawyers, and but we, the PPP, caused them to make it public so Venezuela know that they are taking them to court. What nonsense is a lawyer speaking about? You are taking a man to court and you don't want him to know, and you don't expect him to know that you're going to take him to court? Who does guy thinks that he's speaking to? What kind? We made Guyana, this government made a decision to go to the court long before they got the 18 million. They pulled out of the arbitral process, of the mediation process that the UN was supervising just after they got into government. Just after they got into government. So, I don't know, and they signaled that even without signaling, the only option after that is either you go to the court or you go to war. And they never said that they're going to war, so it only means that they're going to court. And that Raphael Trotman says is a secret. And they were keeping it a secret, and they were keeping this $18 million secretively to finance this secret taking of Venezuela to court. I mean, these guys, they compete with each other to say the most ridiculous things. It is as if they are in a competition with each other to say the most outrageous things. Anyhow, the $18 million, they already took out, I believe, about $15 million to pay legal fees, and $3 million is left in that secret account, while at the same time, we have a case in which we are challenging their failure to put that money in the consolidated fund. They are saying that they don't have to. For 23 years, they would have told you, the people of this country, that the PPP was not putting monies in the consolidated fund. You would have heard that, and I'm sure you don't even understand what the ramifications are. There are certain areas, certain funds that you don't put in the consolidated funds because the law says you must not put it. Like the lotto funds must not go in the consolidated fund until certain time. That law doesn't apply here. It doesn't say in this case with the Exxon Mobil, this doesn't fall into any fund created by law. So it has to go in the consolidated fund, and they have refused to put it there, and that's why I took them to court, and we are awaiting a ruling in that matter. We have so many court matters that we are awaiting decisions for. Caller, you're on the air. Hello? When you call, you have to speak up. You're not calling for my benefit, but you're calling for the benefit of our viewers, and therefore they need to hear you speak, and we have purchased an additional equipment to boost the audio, so you should be loud and clear when you come through. Caller, you are on the air. Yes.
How are you?
I am fine.
I'm listening to program, very numbers. I'm still with the program.
Thank you.
What I want, a column is a very practical stuff, but it's by people, like,
Yes. Yes.
But when you are trying to go back to that, or when you're trying to go,
look at the road, sir. How much car park is for the road, sir? And if you get the road, sir. But the people will man when they register the license and they just bring something and hold them up. But look at the road, sir. Look at how places there. Look at the people there. Look at all the activities you get from. Fun and use people and mad up people. You see, police don't see that. But if you are an ordinary man or a fool man or a register, you're going to do it. Look at that, right?
All right, caller. Thank you. Again, this caller is making the fundamental point that there is discrimination because police not going after minibus and the cars. They're just taking advantage of the bicycles, and these are very, very poor people. And I appeal again to the police force to offer some leverage. Caller, you're on the air. Good night. You're competing with some dogs there.
Hello?
Yes, caller, I'm hearing you.
Good night. I want to ask you about the plane that I going to buy.
Oh, the plane?
The plane, yes. The buying of $4 back.
Well, they said, thank you, caller. Our concern about the plane is twofold. One, we have enough local people here who offer service by aircraft, and they pay their taxes, they run their business, they employ people. Why is the government competing with the private sector in the aviation industry? I mean, I know the president likes to fly around the country to share kites and fly around when you know, they like that. They like that lifestyle. Burnham used to fly around the country with helicopter. You remember, he used to go to work from Belfield on the East Coast. He used to fly to Georgetown. You would think Guyana is the richest country. This is a man where his people were starving, but he was flying to work with helicopter. Well, they want that. They like that kind of lifestyle. They live off the treasury. So they buy 4 aeroplanes, and Harman calls them Rolls Royce. I said in Parliament, it's not Rolls Royce, it's Morris Oxford. And Carl Greenwich was laughing. He didn't know that I know about Morris Oxford. He asked me where I know about that from. It's 4 planes that are as old as I am. That is what they buy. So we have 2 problems. One, they should not buy any planes. They should patronize our local aviation industry and encourage it to expand. Don't compete with it. And secondly, if you're going to buy planes, which we are saying that you should not buy modern planes or don't buy at all. You bring some relics to Guyana, they're not being made anymore. I don't know where they're going to get spare parts and the cost of those spare parts. Caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes.
I'm sorry I cut off that caller apparently the same time that he got through. But there's another caller on the airline. Caller, you're on the air. Hello? We lost that one as well. Hello? Hi, good night. Speak up, speak up.
Hello?
Yes, speak up. I'm hearing you.
I called some time ago in last month and make a request about this Portman Boneyard. So them old people are blocking up the street. And you can't get the street boys and get the park if you like. And you promised me if you're going to send somebody to look into it and the situation still remains.
The Port Moran Boneyard.
Yes. A lot of old car, a lot of junk there.
Is there a name of the street? The street has a name? Huh? It's in the street or on the public road?
In the street.
There's a name of the street?
Portman, next to the barbecue.
Alright, caller, thank you. Alright. I'm asking my good friend, Mr. Armagan, my dear friend Mr. Armagan, could you please, and the Port Moran NDC, could you please look at the prospect of removing the vehicles that have been abandoned in the vicinity of Port Morant Bongyard? The caller is saying that there are a number of vehicles there that are making traversal, egress and ingress through the street hazardous and impassable. So could you please look into this thing? Look, see if you can remove some of these old cars and vehicles. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Good night.
Mm-hmm.
He explained to us as you, this VIP passage, who are entitled to it and who are not, because when we recognize the minister brother, whether he's entitled or not, he passes the airport with VIP pass. Can you explain to us who are really entitled to it?
Thank you. Well, I don't know whether the minister brother used VIP access to pass through the airport. I'm not sure. The minister has denied that. But only ministers and their immediate families, the president and immediate family, and prime minister and immediate family, and members of the judiciary, and I presume their immediate families are allowed. I don't have a list. There is a list of persons who have access to the VIP lounge. That list is normally prepared by Foreign Affairs Ministry, and they are the custodian of that list. They monitor that list to ensure that the list is not violated. But I don't know all the categories of persons who are qualified to be put on that list and to enjoy that privilege. Caller, you're on the air. And we'll take one last caller before we wrap up the program. Caller, you are our final program caller for this evening. Hello? Oh, that caller is lewd. And on that note, unfortunately, my operator has signaled to me to pull the curtains down, and this is where I have to say goodbye until we meet again next week to continue discussing the important events taking place in our country. So goodbye and good night. Thank you very much.